Hello, today I am Gaze and I will be talking about the lost art of Dragon Ball villains. Now let's get straight into it. I've been talking a lot about villains throughout my entire analysis slash recommendations slash reviews of every single iteration of Dragon Ball so far. You can check them out from Should You Watch GT, Z, OG Dragon Ball, as well as Daima and Super. I have touched on villains here and there, but today I really want to get into why I'm not a fan of a lot of the new age Dragon Ball villains. First of all, a lot of Dragon Ball villains were given appropriate build-up. Like, you saw a lot of the lackeys as well as the underlings under that villain have fights and show off their power and strength and subsequently be defeated by the heroes of said arc. You saw that with the Namekian saga with Gohan, Krillin, Goku, Vegeta, and you saw how they went through all of the Frieza Force and Ginyu Force and how much they struggled, which helped build up who Frieza was in the end. The same thing with the Cell saga. They went through all the androids, including Dr. Gero, to build up how powerful Cell would be as a villain. The same thing with the Buu saga. It had the same build up with the Spopovich brothers, obviously, as well as the other people under Babidi and how powerful they kind of were, including Dabura and the fight between Dabura and Gohan. And also the fight between Goku and Vegeta helped hype up how potentially powerful Buu could be. And then you saw Buu fight, and every time he transformed, you felt the power and strength he kept gaining every single time, which helped him become more and more intimidating. However, it was a bit too much at times, and a lot of the fights were a bit boring because they just kept going back and forth consistently. But my entire point is that a lot of the Dragon Ball villains, including the OG ones, had people before them to showcase how truly powerful they were. They were the end goal of the arc. They were the pillar to defeat at that point. So it was nice to kind of build them off from that beginning all the way to the end of the arc, again, which showcased their strength. But nowadays with Dragon Ball Super, the villains kind of just show up. You think of Beerus, he shows up, he starts fighting Goku immediately, so there's no real build up there. Yes, we hear that he's a god of destruction and he blows up planets and that, but still, how many villains have we seen do that? So we don't really have a real test of strength, which is why it was very important to have the other Z fighters be as strong as they were, so that when Goku and Vegeta did show up, you kind of felt that hype because you saw the villains easily beat Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, who was still powerful up to a point. Even if it wasn't them, there was also Piccolo, who helped build up the hype as well. He fought Cell in his first form. He also fought Frieza as well. So he's there to also build up the hype. Nowadays, they're really nowhere near close enough to Goku and Vegeta to really make it believable that they could defeat even the lackeys at times. I mean, we did see that very annoying clip, that very annoying scene of Gohan literally struggling against some members of the Frieza in his base form. Why do that? That was so bad. But anyways, that's kind of my point. That's why everybody should have continued to become more powerful, especially people like Tien and Krillin. There was really no need for them to stop. I understand Krillin might have felt like he can never surpass Goku and Goku will always protect the world. But after the events of Buu saga, surely he must have thought, maybe I should keep up my training. Maybe I should try to help sometimes. Because again, Krillin, when you look back into the Android saga, he thrust himself into the plot to try and help get the Android Destructo bomb type of switch, the switch that would have shut down the androids and stopped Cell from absorbing them in order to become powerful. He was very involved in trying to help, even though he knew he could nowhere near defeat Cell. The same with Tien. He tried to go and stop Cell, even though Cell would have killed him as well. It would have been nice to see them continue to become more powerful so that they can actually contribute in some way, and they aren't. And so if you make them weaker, then you reduce the amount of lackeys that could exist, and now every single lackey just fights Piccolo, Gohan, Vegeta, Goku, mostly Vegeta and Goku, which is what happened in the Tournament of Power when it came to to trying to build up hype for Jiren, you kind of just saw Toppo and them fight the main guys. And again, there was just, the hype could have been so much better, especially when you look at Golden Frieza and the mess of the Frieza Force and the power scaling there. You're also looking at the tournament of Universe 6 and 7 with Hit, the exact same thing where yes, Hit was said to be one of the stronger ones, but again, it was just not the same as it usually is. And also a common theme with older Dragon Ball villains is that they fought multiple times before they reached their peak power. So even when they were weaker, they still were very threatening. They obviously did this with Goku Black and a little bit with Beerus as well. But again, it just didn't feel the same way because the power scaling is such a mess in Super. It's a bit difficult to know how much left or how close Goku and Vegeta really are. Especially with Goku Black, it was really hard to power scale what is going on when Goku was Super Saiyan and Vegeta was also there. It just made it really difficult to know where is the level of power. Is Goku getting closer? Is he too far? It was a bit of a mess. And Super, because of the mess of power scaling, it becomes harder to really define how, it becomes truly difficult to track how big of a mountain they truly are as villains. Jiren, like I said, is the closest to this because of the other fighters, the troopers. But again, it became really difficult to really gauge how powerful Jiren was because he went to absurd levels. The same with Broly. However, Broly is a bit better because we know, because of the classical Broly movie, the hype is still a little bit there. So that would be one of the main issues, is building up that hype. It's building up the character, and that leads to the next main point, which is the characters themselves are just not well defined at all, especially their reasons for trying to do something. I know there was the classical, the Dragon Ball villains just want to destroy everything. I understand, especially with Boo. However, Boo was the literal symbolism of pure evil. So that's why he just wanted to destroy and obliterate everything. But Zamasu, as we all know, just looks at people fighting with rocks and wants to destroy everything. Beerus kind of just wants to test out his strength because he's bored, I guess. So he's the closest to Goku in a way. And then you look at Goma, and his reasons are just horrendous. Like truly, all it is, oh, these guys are really powerful. They could one day end up in my realm. You know what? Let me try and get rid of them by turning them into children. I already talked about just how dumb the plot can be in the Should You Watch Daima video. It's just so irritating. And then you're looking at Jiren. Yes, he was trying to save his universe, obviously, but I don't know. I would have liked an interpersonal reason instead of I just want to become strong guy with a very generic reason. And too many of the villains just feel a bit lazy. Goku Black is like a fan fiction dream. Black Frieza is just having another classical villain come back because they can't really come up with villains of their own, right? You look at Heater, he's so boring. Granola just wants revenge on the Saiyans because of Bardock and what the other Saiyans did, and they're trying to do like the baby Vegeta, the baby thing. Again, baby is so much better as a villain. You really should watch GT, man, especially my video on Should You Watch Dragon Ball GT. But his reasons are so much better. They're so much more personal. You can really understand why he is the way he is. And then you're looking at who else, right? Black Frieza is just Black Frieza. He's coming back. I thought the entire moment between him and Goku in the anime meant, oh yeah, now they have a respect for each other. No, Frieza just still wants to be the classical villain, even though he could have just killed them, by the way. He could have straight up killed Goku and Vegeta right then and there. So I guess he's now become a bit like Goku Black and Goku, where he wants to prove he's the strongest outright out of pride, I guess. And then who else, right? You're looking at they're so bad. Like, who else? I can't really think of anybody else. Yeah, I think I named everybody. It's Beerus, Jiren, Goma, Goku Black, Moro. Okay, Moro is also It's very similar to Boo, and it's more so like I want to rule the universe, destroy it type of thing. It's been a while since I read the manga, but I think the reason why people like him is because he feels a bit more like a character compared to everybody else. He's a bit closer to Beerus than he is to Jiren, so a lot of people like him. But I think that should be the end of the video. I explained every reason on why I just don't like these villains. They're quite boring, and in a anime like Dragon Ball, the least you can do is build them up in terms of strength instead of just having them be powerful off of a MacGuffin like the third eye in Daima, or just be powerful out of nowhere like a Jiren, and there's no real intrinsic thematic reason why. At least with Frieza and Vegeta, the whole point was to show, well, for Vegeta it was about nature versus nurture, and then for Frieza it was all about fulfilling the destiny of defeating Frieza that was basically just created ever since he destroyed the planet, which then sent Goku to Earth. So it was a whole roundabout. But with Jiren, he was just strong to be an that was it. There was there was nothing deeper than that, right? You think of the androids, and it was about defeating the unnatural creations of Dr. Gero and the intriguing strength and power that they had, especially since you couldn't even detect it. They were more like creepy villains. You think of Cell, he was the ultimate test for Gohan to prove that he could be stronger than Gohan, Vegeta, and everybody else, since he was the just power of every Z fighter at that point. So it's quite annoying. It's quite annoying to see what Dragon Ball villains have become, and that's why I would say the art of them has been lost. It's really not that difficult. All you gotta do is make them decent characters, build them up over time, make the arc about them and trying to defeat them, and this is probably why people like Moro so much. Anyways, check you guys later, and this is Gaze. If you want to hear more of my complaints about Dragon Ball and future recommendations that I have coming up, subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoyed it. Check you later.